So, hi everyone, and welcome to How Clear Boundaries Are Win-Win for Everybody. Now, you signed up here presumably because you have become aware of how people-pleasing or codependency, however you want to talk about it, and wishy-washy or non-existent boundaries, as was my case, are causing problems in your life. Maybe you aren't yet aware of the depth of those problems, the insidious nature of people pleasing in your life. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So how is it going to work? First of all, welcome. We'll have this little bit of welcome. Then I want to share a little bit about me, my story, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why it's so important for me, because I know the transformation I've gone through to get here to be talking to you today, from somebody who could not say no, who didn't understand that I could, that there was a possibility for me. So it wasn't just that I physically couldn't say no, I didn't realise I had a choice. And that was a very, very deeply ingrained belief. And it really affected so many areas of my life. But I'll move on to that in a second. So how is this going to work? So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about me, who I am, why we're here to do this. Then I'll lead you through, and I've made some notes because I'm not very good at, I'm very good at winging it. So in order to make sure that we actually get the whole thing brought together nicely, I made a few notes. So what we're going to cover in the course of this webinar together is, what people pleasing really means in your life, not just in general, but what does it mean in your life and in those important relationships, identifying the relationships where people pleasing is a problem, why we people please or fall into codependency, recognizing the patterns in your thoughts, in the way that you feel, in the way that you behave, in the way that you view other people. And finally, I'll be sharing with you some techniques to just begin breaking that pattern, very gently breaking that pattern of codependency or people pleasing. And then we'll look at boundaries. We can't, in the course of the time that we have together, we can't go through completely rewriting your boundaries or really fixing your boundaries in place. However, at the end, I'll explain how you can go forward with me and really get to that place where you understand what boundaries you need, what boundaries are, and you begin to put them in place to work in your life, not just those general boundaries that you say no. There are going to be some yeses in your life as well, but until you understand what you need to do, you as a reforming people pleaser needs to put in place for your unique life. It's very difficult to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end, if you bear with us all the way through. But I've got a special offer for you at the end as well, which is lovely. And then I will open the floor up to some questions and answers. So that's how it's going to work. I hope to keep this to something in the region of 90 minutes. Now, let's see how I go. It may be less, but it certainly won't be more than that. So let's get started. Let's make the most of the time. Do you have a pen? Do you have a piece of paper? Do you have a glass of water? Are you comfortable? Those are the most important things. Everything else you can watch on replay. This will be available. You'll receive a copy of it via email at the end of the session, and it will be live for 48 hours, no more than 48 hours. I'll take it down after that. So if you didn't make it live, you've got 48 hours to watch it. If you need to go back and re-listen, same thing. So let's get started. Who am I? I am Alison Reiner. As you know, I'm your Loved Again coach. What on earth does that mean? I call myself a Loved Again coach because I work in relationships. I work with women who are very unhappy in their relationships, women who are going around in circles asking what they can do to improve the relationship. Should they stay in the relationship? Should they leave the relationship? And actually, this Loved Again is slightly, I have to say, I slightly draw you in with that. Because for me, Loved Again is about inside. It's about loving yourself I have not come up with or met a client yet, met a situation yet where the solution lay outside of me or outside of you. The solution lies within you. And one of the things that, that I know absolutely without a shadow of a doubt is when your sense of self is weak, when the way that you view yourself is weak, when you're not what I call self-love, when you're not showing yourself self-love. And what is self-love? Self-love is self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and self-worth. So self-knowledge, that's knowing who you are at your core, not who you are, your own set of value and beliefs, your own person, not what you've been taught by society or by your parents or by learned behaviour to be or to believe in, but who you are at your core. And that takes peeling back some layers, takes peeling back some of the stories that you've bought into over the years that now are running you, the way that you make decisions, that running the way that you are struggling to put yourself first and saying no to other people and yes to yourself. So that's self-knowledge, and it takes a lot of, well, first of all, it takes some work to agree that you're going to go inside and look. That takes courage. It also takes the ability to be vulnerable, because sometimes what we find in there are our hurts imposed on us by other people. We all have those where we don't feel that we got enough from our parents, we don't feel that we got enough from our friends, we feel that we weren't loved enough, and it's hard to go back inside and look at that. But that's a necessary part of getting to this self-love. Self-acceptance, back again, when we look inside. And the reason that we don't look inside, the reason that we tell people that we live in our egos, if you like, and we tell people that we are that we're a piece of shit, that we're not good enough, that we can't do this, we can't do that, and we put it out there before anyone else has the chance to judge us, is because we're terrified to go and look inside and find the truth. And the truth is that you're perfect as you are. You didn't create you. You were created by something bigger than you, which means that you were created as perfection. What's going on? You have everything that's inside of you is there for a reason. Might have gone slightly off course because of the history back, because of the stories that you've been given, that you've bought into, that you've believed. Maybe this sense of perfectionism that everyone else has leeway in life, but you need to get it right 100% of the time. But when you can actually overcome that and start to accept yourself exactly as you are, it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And when you've done that, that helps you, that improves your sense of self-worth, your self-esteem. It pulls you out of that place of low self-confidence and low self-worth, where you find it just impossible to stand strong, to put boundaries in place for yourself, and to say no to other people, or to ask for other people. When I'm talking very generically today. I'm not necessarily just focusing on your romantic relationships, but that these issues run riot across all of your life. So your romantic life, yes, but with your family, with your kids, with your parents, with your siblings, with friends and family, with your work colleagues, with your boss, with your clients, if you run your own business like I do. This sense of people pleasing and not being able to put firm boundaries in place runs riot when we're not being true to ourselves, when our own sense of self-worth or self-esteem is very low. And it can happen in certain relationships and not in others, and that makes it even more confusing sometimes. Why does it only happen here and not there? But if we actually take a step back and we look at it, you'll see that it is actually at play on some level in all of your relationships. However, when you get to that place of self-love, that's when you can begin to addressing your boundaries, your people-pleasing tendencies, and start making changes there. So that's my firm belief, and that's what I teach the women that come to work with me. They think they're coming to find out how to save their marriage or transform their marriage, and that's exactly how it happens. Because when that work happens, everything changes out there. People change in your confront. People can't, that's Italian, people can't behave the same way towards you as they did before because you're not behaving the same way. It changes the dynamic. And what will happen then, in all honesty, is the people that are supposed to be in your life, the people that are there and they want to have that equal relationship that getting rid of people pleasing allows, will stay. The people that are there to take and take and take and have got no desire to give anything back, they won't like it. And they'll push and push and push to try and get you to move back into the old way of being. But if you stay strong, eventually they get bored and they'll have a decision to make. They'll have a decision to make, not you. Either I have to accept this new person, this new way of being, or I have to leave. And if they're not strong enough, if they're weak people, they'll leave. And that's not your business. And it sounds terrifying, doesn't it? Because people pleasing, you know, when I asked before I started putting together this class, I asked, you know, what is it that makes, or what is it you fear most in terms of people pleasing, in terms of not being able to say no? And a lot of it is, and you know, a lot of you answered me by saying fear of rejection, fear that people will push me away, they won't love me, they will, you know, or they'll be angry at me for letting them down. So that, you know, that is such a powerful, powerful fear that it keeps you in the loop, keeps you in that circle for a long, long, long time. But we're going to start breaking that, because that is not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be for you, but it doesn't help you, you know, it doesn't help you to build those strong relationships with healthy boundaries, mutual trust, and mutual love and esteem for each other. Yeah, and that, again, that goes back to any relationship you have. So today we're going to start dismantling those. So why am I talking about it? Well, for me, I was born, I believe, a people pleaser. I very early in my life, and I don't remember this at all, and this is how insidious people pleasing can be, or codependency can be. Very early in life, when I was born, my mother started to suffer migraines. Now, migraines, I think I've only had 2 or 3 in my life. They're stress related, and they cause you to, you know, they cause such pain in your head. You don't want noise, you don't want light, you can't eat, you can't, you know, you just want to be left alone in a bowl in a darkened area. And that's not particularly, you know, that's not particularly possible when you've got a bouncy new baby or a bouncy toddler who wants to play and learn and interact. And if I understand correctly, I was rewarded for being quiet. I was rewarded for giving my mum time to be sick and to be, you know, and to look after herself, that she had to do because she was sick. And, you know, and I was told things like good girls, or, you know, you're such a good girl for being quiet, you're such a good girl for leaving mum in peace, you're such a good girl for not asking for anything from me, you know. And that's how I got, you know, that's how I created this picture of what, you know, what a loving relationship was. If I'm a good girl, I get love, I get praise, I get, you know, I get something back from you. So my job, in order to get love, in order to get, you know, get something in a relationship, is to be a good girl and not ask. And I took that forward. I took that idea forward. I didn't question it because it arrived in very early childhood. I didn't ever question it, but I did take it, and I took it forward for so many years into every single relationship. I took it into my friendships. I took it into my romantic relationships. I took it into, you know, relationships with superiors, so teachers at school, professors at university, bosses at work. I took my work colleagues. There wasn't an area in my life where I didn't have this firm belief that my job was to stay quiet, be a good girl, and hopefully get something back. Now, of course, that worked with my mother. It worked with people who really wanted just to take from me. who had no desire or were unable. Because a lot of the time what we forget is when we see this bad behaviour in other people, we forget that actually they have their own stories too. And they're no worse or no badder. They have their own set of circumstances that created the person that they're showing up as. So it's very often we feel anger, we feel hatred sometimes even against them, but they're not doing anything different to us. They're just trying to survive with the tools that they picked up back in their early childhood. So there was I, pleasing my way through life. And where did it get me? It got me not asking for promotions. It got me not attracting the sort of friends that were going to hold my back. I had the friends that took and took and took, and when I didn't perform, dropped me and moved on to the next set. I thought there was something dreadfully wrong with me. What's wrong with me that I can't keep these friendships? So it started to affect my self-esteem, which of course was very low in the first place, or else I wouldn't have been desperately trying to get love and acceptance from people. So it started to eat away at itself. And what I was left with was no sense of who I was, no sense of what I was allowed or could expect from life. Anything I got was a bonus, but I didn't have any expectations that people would give to me, that people would love me, that people would accept, acknowledge. And at one point I was even saying things like, I would prefer you didn't know I existed to having a bad opinion of me. That's how firmly fixed this people pleasing was in my body, in my life, in the way that I believed I had to be. And I'm sure if you're watching, you're saying, oh my God, that sounds really awful. If you take a moment, can you think of how your people pleasing shows up for you, what it's causing you, how it makes you feel, and what it's making you do? And knowing the whole time that the more that you're in that place, the more it's eroding your self-confidence, your self-worth, and the more difficult it is then to go forward and love yourself, which is the crux of everything. As I said before, that's the crux of everything. So as I'm talking, think of your own stories. So, my story, and I won't talk much more about it. I think I've given you a good enough overview to let you understand that it was pervasive, and it ruined so many relationships. It ruined the relationship I had with myself, first and foremost, and it meant that nobody else, those good people out there that wanted to get into me, couldn't get into me because I was pushing them away, because no one can get closer, no one can give me more than I'm giving myself. That's just the law. That's the truth of it. So when I am, when I'm not treating myself with love, respect, compassion, when I'm not believing in my own worth, when I'm allowing other people and other situations to determine my happiness or how I feel about myself, then I'm not in self-love. And when I'm in that place, I can't allow anyone else to love me more than I'm loving myself. And what happens are two things. I'll do two things like this. The first thing is, if those good people in the world do start to come close to me, I start to what's the word I'm looking for? I start to push them away. I start to sabotage our relationships. I start to test them. I start to, because I'm believing that they don't, that they don't mean what they say. They don't love me as much as I believe or as they're telling me they do. So I start to test, and I start to push, and I start to, and I create all sorts of difficulties in that relationship just to prove that I'm right and they're wrong. They can't possibly love me that much. And often what happens is people stick around for a while, but it's so difficult to love someone that's pushing you away. They eventually leave. And this can be, again, in any situation. It doesn't just have to be in your romantic life. It can be with your friendships. That's where I struggled most in the grander scheme of things, was in friendship, and also at work. So people leave, and then you say, see, I'm not lovable. I knew that. I knew they would leave. But you created it. You created it by not allowing it in. You couldn't allow it in because Nobody can get closer to you than you are to yourself. No one can know you more than you know yourself. So you can't allow it in. The other hand, on the other side, there are those that have got no interest in you at all. They're out seeking. You know, if we're talking about, you know, and I don't want to go and start using terms, but you know, if you're somebody who's very giving, then quite often you attract narcissistic type personalities, those that want to take, those that want to dominate, those that have got no interest in you as a person, in your feelings. And they start to come in because you're giving and giving, and they love it. They're taking and taking, and they don't have to give anything back because you never ask for anything back. And then, when you're there, what's your view of the world? Well, your view of the world is, it's not trusting. I can't trust people. It's everyone's the enemy. It's a hostile environment. It's me against them. It's me against the world. I'm apart. Everything's over there. I'm apart. I need to keep myself apart because it's so awful over there. I don't want to be part of it. And that is completely against the nature of why we're here. We're here to be connected. We are connected. And if you're holding yourself apart for fear of people or situations arising, then you're not here. You're not living your life to its full potential. You're not living your purpose. You're holding back. And I say that as somebody that held back and created a huge wall, a huge glass wall between me and the rest of the world, just to keep myself safe. Now, that wasn't a particularly healthy wall. You know, if I talk about boundaries, that's not the sort of boundary that I am talking about at all. So let's get started. First of all, people pleasing. Think about it. What does it mean to you? I'm going to bring my folder up. Think of all the relationships you've got in your life at the moment. Think of the ones that are more difficult for you to ask for help or ask for what you deserve. Think of the ones that you find it difficult to say no. Why do you find it difficult to say no? What happens? What are the thoughts in your head? What's the story that starts when you find yourself? Do you find yourself getting anxious when you're in somebody's company in case they ask for something and you are duty bound to say yes? Do you find yourself taking a step back from friends and family or work colleagues or your boss or whatever, in the hope that taking that step back, they won't ask you to do something for them? You won't be put in that situation where you've got to say yes and hate it, or say no and be riddled with guilt, or look at the pain in their eyes or the confusion in their eyes because they're not used to you saying no to them. Think of your own stories. I'll give you a second to take a couple of seconds to do that, and then when you're watching this on replay, you can take a lot more time. You can pause it and take a lot more time. So what's happening inside of you? You know, I've got a list somewhere that I printed out of all the expressions that people come up with. The very one that I had in my hand. So, you know, you struggle to say no. You feel excessively guilty if you do say no. And that's what I'm talking about before. You start projecting all sorts of stories onto that other person or onto those other people. They may have, it may have been that in the past somebody was disappointed in you. But that's what you take in. Every time I say no, they'll be disappointed. They'll be hurt. They'll be angry. They'll reject me. It may have happened once. It doesn't happen in every relationship. As I said, most people want to get closer to you. Most people want to know the real you. They don't want to know the mask. They don't want to know that never saying no version of you. So, are you hyper vigilant? You're always looking out for that sense of being pushed away by other people. Do you fear negative emotions, your own negative emotion, but that of other people? So you do anything in your power to keep that at bay. So instead of seeing that disappointment in someone's face, or the possibility of someone being hurt or angry in your presence, you'll say yes anyway. Then you'll tell yourself, well, it's easy for me to do, so I may as well do it. How much do you suffer at the expense of saying yes when you really mean no? So, and I talk about that in terms of your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. How tired do you get when you're always putting other people and their needs first, and you've got no room in your life for you? Your view of the world, of course, is coloured. It's heavy, it's dark, it's not beautiful and light, because you're tired, for one, but also because you see everything as a weight on your shoulders, your inability to say no. What's the other thing that happens often is you start to see people as almost as the enemy. You start to think that they're doing it on purpose just to upset you. I hope that's not just me. That's how it was for me anyway. Don't they know? Don't they know what they're doing to me? Why do they never ask for anything? And why do they never ask to help me? The chances are they do, or they have done in the past. But you keep pushing back. You keep rejecting. You keep saying no. You keep. And at that point, it's very difficult for somebody to continue with it. So they let it go. Well, she must be happy. People kind of take you on face value. Well, she's saying yes. What? She means yes. Why wouldn't she? People with strong boundaries. I've got a husband with very strong boundaries. For years, he didn't know that I meant no when I said yes. Why would he? He would never say yes if he meant no. More than that, he would never say yes and then cancel at the last minute, which is what I would do. He would never throw a tantrum. He would never get into a strop. He would never expect me to be able to read his mind. But that's what I did. That's what I did time and time and time again. Where are you doing that? Do you convince yourself that it's easier to do it yourself because you're stronger, you've got more time, it's easier to do it rather than explaining it to other people? You find your... And sorry, I'm just checking to see if I've missed anything there, and I haven't. So, think about that. What's it costing you? Why do you fall into people pleasing? Why do you get into this codependency, this need for validation from other people? Well, very simply, going back to the beginning, fear of rejection and fear of being judged, or fear of failure. So fear that if you say no, if you don't do what you believe is expected of you, people will push you away, people won't love you, people won't accept you for who you are. And some, to be perfectly honest, when you start this process, some people will do exactly that, and they'll disappear out of your life, and that's scary. I know that's scary. But what those people do is they clear space for other people. They clear space for the people that do want to come into your life and do want to show you support, but they can't get in because you've got all these other entities hanging about, sucking the blood from you. There are other people in your life at the moment that desperately want that equal relationship, but they can't have it because you're not allowing it. So now is the time to step back and say, where can I make this change? Where can I allow these people in? How am I going to treat myself more gently, more lovingly, and teach those other people how to love me too? So The fear of failure is a big one. That's the perfectionist in us. That's the one that allows everyone else to make mistakes, allows leeway for everyone else to ask and to put and to fail. But that's not for us. We can't fail. We're so harsh on ourselves. We're harsher on ourselves than anybody else ever could be. If you listen to the words, the voice in your head when you're talking to yourself, is it a kind voice? Is it the voice you would use with a small child? Is it the voice you would use with a sick relative? Or a work colleague who's going through a tough time? Or a best friend who's in the midst of trauma? I can tell you, I don't even need to wait for your answer. I can tell you it's not. That the voice in your head is so harsh. And if anybody else spoke to you with that same tone, with those same words, you would be so angry, but you allow yourself to do it. And whilst you're allowing yourself to do it, you're not teaching other people. No one else is going to say, well, she's really hard on herself. I better be uber kind, uber loving. It doesn't work like that. They treat you, they see you as strong and together. So they treat you as strong and together, and they keep loading on you and loading on you until eventually you can't take the weight anymore and you collapse. And that's what happened to me. And that's what happens to you. You're here because you realise that you're heading towards that place. So, what are the first steps to recognising your pattern of behaviour? Your thoughts, your feelings. How can you begin to question it and reframe it? Well, and that's very simple. That's practice. Practice saying no. Practice saying no, a way out there where it doesn't affect you. Practice with people that you're not emotionally involved in. If they're upset, yeah, they'll upset you a bit, but it's not going to devastate you. So don't start here with that person or those people that are causing you the biggest problem in terms of people pleasing and boundary setting. Listen, listen to what's going on. Listen before you go into a situation with the people that trigger you. Listen to what you're telling yourself. Listen to the feelings you have. Maybe it's a feeling you have in your guts or in your heart, or voices you hear in your head. Every one of us assumes this differently. But listen into yourself. What's happening? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's it making you feel about yourself and other people? Take yourself into that moment where somebody asks something of you. You've got that thought, I want to say no, I want to say no, I want to say no. Please don't ask me this, please don't ask me this. They ask you. And without so much as a bat of an eye, you say, yeah, of course, yeah, that'd be great, I'd love to. And the chances are 50% of the time, 70% of the time, who knows, you don't know at this point, but a good percentage of the time you would love to say yes. It would be a hands up 100% yes. However, you're not giving yourself that opportunity. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to know, is it a yes, is it a no? You're in there with the yes. What happens then? How are you feeling? How are you feeling about yourself? How are you feeling about that other person? What does it make you feel in general? Heavy, the world on your shoulders. Yet again, frustrated that you couldn't say no, angry at the other person for asking you, angry at yourself, hurt because you're back into the story. You think about it. This is how it worked for me. It's how I hear it work with my clients. But you've got your own unique way of thinking about these things when they happen. Ask yourself this. How would it feel to say no and know that the other person would be happy? That they would say, oh, no bother, just asking on the off chance. How would that feel? Take yourself into that place instead of feeling this old story that I've got to. How about, when I don't, the reaction is good. Can you think of a situation where it was impossible for you to say yes? Maybe you were so snowed over, maybe you were in bed, whatever the reason, you were in bed sick, you had so many other things going on that it was just impossible for you to say no. What was the other person's reaction? Keep going with that thought until you find that reaction that was, oh well, no worries, just worth a try, because there will be people that react like that. That's the way that most people react, unless we've trained them otherwise, unless we've trained them to always expect from us. In which case you might see the disappointment in their eyes, you might see the hurt, you might get the passive aggressive behaviour back. Most people accept that that's the case, accept that we can't always be available. Most people don't want us always to be available. They want us to live our lives as well. They want us to put ourselves first. They want us to lead by example. So, you've got those thoughts. Now you're beginning to reframe them. Find those occasions. Feel into those occasions where you just couldn't say yes. You had to say, no, I'm sorry. It was physically impossible. It was, mentally impossible. It was, it just couldn't happen. Feel how you felt, the relief that you feel, the reaction of the other person, never as bad as you imagine, because, the story that we carry in our head is 100 times worse than reality, 100% of the time. So then the next part is, once you've got this clear idea on what happens inside of you when you're put in this situation, when you find yourself in this situation, it's not nice, is it? And you need to really, really go into that. You need to feel the complete discomfort of that if you want to make a change. Because while we're talking about people pleasing, I'm a bit of a people pleaser, it's not strong enough to make you want to do something about it. And that's why I say it's such an insidious little beast. It gets into everything. It goes everywhere through your body, through your mind. But whilst we're taking it lightheartedly, we're never going to change it. We're never going to see what is causing us. So, the physical reaction, also the reaction of how we feel about ourselves. If you can't say no to other people, then you really don't know how to put yourself first. You really don't know how to show yourself kindness, compassion, and love. And if you're not doing it, no one else can do it. If you're not giving it to you, no one else will. It's your responsibility. Your happiness, your emotional well-being is your responsibility. But when you're saying yes to other people, you're making it their responsibility, because they have the ability to make you happy if they're happy, or sad, angry, frustrated if you feel like they're putting upon you. So you've given them that power. Now we're going to take it back. What am I feeling? How bad is it? How do I view myself? I'm going to have to change the way I view myself. I'm going to have to work on self-acceptance, self-knowledge, get to know myself, what I really want. Accept who I am, good, bad, all of it. Because I wasn't created in my mind. I was created by a higher power, by a God, by whatever you look up to and believe in that isn't you. I was created by something that isn't me perfectly. So everything I have, I was given for a reason. I just need to work out what I want to do with it. And certainly I wasn't given it so that I could put everyone else before me. That's not why I'm here. So get uncomfortable. Get really uncomfortable with what it feels like. Because it's only then that you're going to want to push yourself out of that comfort zone. If you've heard of the comfort zone, Sounds lovely again. So it's a bit like people pleasing. Comfort zone. Why would you want to leave the comfort zone? It's comfortable. That's the problem. We don't like change. As people, we don't like change. So we prefer to stay stuck in this misery where we can't say no to other people. We let promotions go by us. We let friendships, become one-sided. Relationships become one-sided. Kids running all over us, not respecting us, not listening to us, all because we're not putting ourselves first. We're not listening to ourselves. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? We have that power, but we're giving it to all and sundry. So, and you're never ever going to step out of that comfort zone until it's even more uncomfortable there than the vision of what life can be outside. So, we put up with the discomfort because we know it. And change is scary. But change doesn't have to be scary. Change can be, fear. Change don't have to be big, scary words. We can take them, and we can take them with a little bit of lightness. We can take them with a little bit of curiosity and carry them forward. So that's where you're going to find the courage to really take a step out, to really make a decision to move out and begin the process of breaking down those people-pleasing reactions and start to put some clear, healthy boundaries in place in order to create win-win relationships with everybody. People want to know where they stand with you. They want to know they can trust you. If you're a yes, you're 100% yes. If you're a no, you're 100% no. If you're half in, half out, if you turn up with a bad grace, if you don't turn up at all, if people feel that, what you say is the least important part of who you are. The words, the words don't match what else is going on, the attitude that you turn up, that you carry, the heaviness that you have around about you, then no matter how many times you say, yeah, I can't wait to do that. If you're saying it, but you're like this, people feel it and they believe that rather than the words. So it's creating those boundaries to allow people into. So very quickly, some little techniques to allow you to buy some time, because we can't switch off immediately. So let's buy some time between that yes, or that question and the yes. And the very first way of creating that is to realise that you do have a choice. As I said right at the very beginning when I started this, I didn't realise I had a choice. I didn't realise there was a chance to say no, or to do what I wanted to do. I didn't realise that I could put myself first. Other people seem to know that, as I say with my husband. He puts himself first. He's not selfish. He knows what he wants, he knows what he likes. If he doesn't want to go and see X at the cinema, he'll say no. I didn't have that ability. I would go to the cinema and watch all sorts of things except horror. I could, so again, I had boundaries. We all have boundaries. We aren't aware of them, and sometimes they're so far removed from us that we're not even aware that they're there. So for instance, horror movies I will never go and see. So I have a boundary when it comes to that. Everything else, however, I was a doormat. Oh, cinema, all right. No, I have no opinion. And I would go along. Sometimes I'd want to go. A lot of the time, I wouldn't have chosen that movie for myself. So you probably find that happening as well. You do have a boundary in all areas of your life. It's just so far away from you that you can't see it. So that's the very first thing. How am I going to stop people pleasing? First, realise that you have a choice. Realise that you do have boundaries in place somewhere. The other one that quite often, for any of the mothers watching this, I find it difficult still to this day. I find it difficult sometimes to put boundaries in place for myself, or to be firm for myself. You touch my kid, you look at my kid the wrong way, you bully my kid in school, you treat my kid with anything less than 100% love and respect, and I'm on you. I can't do it for myself, but I can do it for my children. So, you know, I have boundaries there. My kids are non-negotiable. So you'll find your own boundaries that are already in place, and then we begin to move them closer to you. So realize that you have a choice. Stall is the next thing. Stall. So instead of yes, just take a step back. Take a step back and say, let me, I'm not sure. It can be that simple. I'm not sure. Let me check my diary. Or I've got something on that day. Let me check. I'm not sure what time. Or something that buys you a little bit of time. Let me get back to you. Then you've got time to take a step back. Then you've got time to start to ask yourself, is this something that I want to do? Is this something that's going to tire me physically, emotionally? Is it something that's going to take away from my very precious me time? Is it something that I'm going to have to add into an already overcrowded schedule that will leave me feeling exhausted, frustrated, and resentful against other people? And if it's a yes, then you go back and you say, check my diary. I'm not available. Then, if you want, you can offer an alternative. If you don't need to. But that buys you that space. The next thing is setting a time limit. If you go back and you say, yeah, I can do it. Or if you find yourself, because, we're never going to get this 100% first off, but if you find yourself back saying, yes, meaning no, set a time limit. Say, yes, but I'm only available for 1 hour between 12 and 1. Or I'm only available, via whatever, Skype. I can't be there in person. Or, find that time limit and then stick to it. It's much easier. That's a boundary that you've put in place for yourself. It's something it doesn't keep you safe from other people. It keeps you safe from yourself. You've already declared that you're only there for that amount of time. Therefore, at the end of that amount of time, you can comfortably leave. Often what happens is the other person will say, did you not say you had to leave now? Because that's how it is. The last thing in terms of buying some time is remember that no is a full sentence. A lot of the time that we say yes, a lot of the time that we don't come out with our no immediately, it's because we can't think of a good enough, plausible enough excuse that won't upset somebody else, that won't make them, question us or look disappointed, or it won't be a strong enough one for them to buy into. So what do? We say yes because it's easier than trying to convince them of our excuse. You don't need to give an excuse. No is a full sentence. Now, I learned this years ago with when my husband and I worked together. When we first met, we worked together. And we'd be homesick. And if I was sick, I would phone into the office and I would say, oh, I'm sick and I think I'm feeling so bad, I'll probably be off today and tomorrow. And yes, I've got fever. And yes, I've got this and yes, I've got that. And oh, I hope to be back tomorrow. I'll let you know tomorrow. Blah, 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 blah. The guy in personnel was probably saying, oh, just shut up and go away. But I felt that I had to justify why I wasn't where I should be. I was so, I couldn't accept that people would just take a no from me. My husband, on the other hand, would phone up and say, I won't be in today. He didn't ever say he was sick. He didn't ever give any reason for it. I was horrified to begin with. But I now understand I don't need to tell you. If you want to know, you'll ask. But most people don't. And actually, what happens is, if I say, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't, and you say, oh, why not? I start to bristle a little bit. How dare you question me? And I'll say, because I'm busy, because I've got something else on, because X, Y, or Z. And they say, oh, all right, and off they go. But most times people don't do that. So that's one way to buy a little bit of time for you. Finally, let's go to boundaries. What the heaven's name are boundaries? Now, when I was speaking to people in my group and to some clients, just to get their picture of how they've viewed boundaries. Boundaries can somebody told me that her boundaries are, the Berlin Wall with the barbed wire on the top. That's what she thinks when she thinks about boundaries. For me, it was that glass wall where I seemed to be behind it, watching everybody, but not being part of it, because I was too scared to go out there in case they put it on me, and they couldn't get into me either because it was so tall they couldn't get to me. So for me, that's what I thought boundaries were when I started. So what do you think when we talk about these boundaries? What do you think? The biggest mistake that people make when they talk about boundaries or think about boundaries is they have a belief that boundaries are created to keep other people out. Boundaries are to keep us safe from ourselves. No more than that, no less than that. If you struggle to ask for what you want, to receive what you need, if you're a people pleaser and it's affecting all areas of your life, then you need boundaries to keep you from continuing the practice of people pleasing. So it's got nothing to do with those other people out there. The boundaries are for you, to keep you safe from yourself. That's it. So it kind of makes it a bit lighter, doesn't it, when you think of it from that point of view? Because already you beat yourself up, so why not put a couple of boundaries in place for yourself anyway? So what's that boundary going to look like for you? That's why we need to go back to understanding what not having the boundary in place causes you, what the people pleasing brings up for you, where it happens, with whom, in what certain situations, so that you can identify where you're going to have to put boundaries in place and how you're going to implement that. Now, I'm not going to go into it in much more detail than that because it takes a long time. I'll tell you, I've got a course that I'm going to offer you at the end of this. So, I'll go through it at that point. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that can happen in these short minutes that we're together. But it gives you a good start so that you understand what these boundaries or lack of them are causing you. But before you can even think to implement them, you need to go back to that place, the previous steps, and see where they show up, with whom, how, what situations, what's it leaving you feeling, what's it making you feel about yourself, about people, and therefore, what am I going to have to do? What is it that I need to put in place? And what often happens when we talk about boundaries is we tend to put them very firmly in place. And certainly I did. I spent my whole life when I started this work was, saying to my husband, I'm sorry, this is just a boundary. I've no idea if I need it or not. But, bear with me, because I had to make them really big and strong for me. And then when I got more comfortable saying no, when I got more comfortable asking for what I wanted, when I got more comfortable, knowing that other people's behaviour or other people's opinion of me wasn't my business, I could let them down and bring them in a little bit. I could make them a lot gentler. I could make them move a little bit. So there are certain things that I say yes to now that I would never have done at the beginning of my journey 4 or 5 years ago. I would never have said yes to some of the things that I do automatically now, because I can, because I'm much more aware of myself. I know myself better. I know how to manage myself, and more importantly, I know how to say no when somebody asks me something and I get that immediate feeling in my body. I'm much better at saying no. I'm sorry, I can't. But it took practice. It took practice and strong boundaries. So you will need to understand where they need to go in place, who you can concentrate on, and practice them way far out from, so with the people that you're not so emotionally involved with, the people that yes, nobody wants to hurt or upset or see that look of disappointment on anyone's face, let's be honest, but there are people that are going to be, that you'll be less worried about offending or upsetting. So practice out there, practice those steps out there. Understand, you know, what saying no feels like. Buy into it, really feel it, feel the excitement that comes up, because, you know, if you're anything like me, you'll get that fizz of excitement. Oh, look what I did! Wow, yeah! And you'll not wait to do it again. I can't wait for the next person to come along so I can say no. That's what we're practicing here, and then you bring it closer and closer and closer until you're face to face with those difficult relationships. So I'm just having a look through, making sure I haven't missed anything here for you. No, I think I've covered everything pretty much there. Yeah, so the whole purpose of what we've done so far is to create win-win boundaries. Now, I did have some questions that came up during the course of this that I wanted to just run through with you. I didn't. Where are they? So bear with me a second till I find them. They sit here. Yeah. So, how can I stop feeling unappreciated and used, but never saying anything for fear of judgment? Well, that's exactly what we were talking about before, is, you know, what other people think of you is none of your business. Now, that sounds so easy to say, and I know how difficult it is to cut the, you know, cut the cords. It goes back, you know, a lot of this goes back to very, very early childhood, where we're not even aware that we've picked this behaviour up. So, you know, we feel we give and we give and we give and we give in the hope that somebody recognises that we're giving so much. You know, that one of the ridiculous things that I saw in myself is nobody knew that I was people pleasing. Nobody was even aware of it. They took me at face value. So if I'm feeling unappreciated, if you're feeling unappreciated, it's because you're doing things that you don't want to do, and nobody else knows that you're actually doing them a favour because you haven't told them. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you stop doing it. You take that step. You go back to those steps that I shared with you, where you understand, you know that you can say no, that you have a choice. You decide, you stall for a little bit, decide whether you want to do this thing or not. You don't explain yourself to anybody, and you say, and if you say yes, you set yourself some fairly tight time frames. If you say no, it's a no. And don't get caught up in other people's facial expressions. I would say that more than anything. Don't get caught up in other people's facial expressions. They're having to break a pattern too. If you've always said yes and suddenly you say no, it's a shock. It's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change, you know, the first time you do it or the second time you do it. You have to stay consistent. You have to consistently question yourself. Take that step back. Ask yourself, do I want to say yes? Do I want to say no? What works best for me? Run through those questions in my head. What do I get out of it? Do I have time physically, emotionally, and mentally? Will it eat into my own personal time that is so important for me? And then you make a decision based on that, not withstanding anything that you see from the other person's facial expression, whatever they say to you. And yeah, so you're raised to feel guilty, guilt tripped a lot of the child. Yeah, and that's so when you're raised to feel guilty, when you're guilt tripped, then that's the story you've got in your head. If I'm to say no, I'll feel so guilty about it, and they will judge me, and they will hate me. They will, be disappointed. They'll be angry. They'll be. So again, you're handing your power away completely to somebody else, or to a situation, to a story, that happened away in your past. Not now, not here. So again, that happened. That's part of your history. That's what created this sense of not being able to say no, not being able to put yourself first. It's also affected your sense of self-love, self-worth. So, that's why it's so important to go back in there and work on that. Work on yourself, your sense of self. It's something that I work on so much. Most of the time, most of the work that I do with my clients is based around this sense of self. I often think the other person is more deserving, and that's a big thing. And that's, is that the truth? No, it's just easier. It's easier because it goes back to that voice in your head, doesn't it? It goes back to that voice where you're saying, where you're being so hard on yourself. And if somebody else were to talk to you that way, you would be so hard. You deserve to put you first. You deserve to be number one in your eyes. You deserve your own time, your own space, and other people deserve to make themselves priority in their lives. It's not your job to prioritize other people in your life. Again, handing your power out to somebody else. How do I deal with being? You feel guilty because I don't have a valid reason to say no. Well, that goes back to what I was saying before, doesn't it? I don't have a valid reason to say no. You don't need a valid reason. The valid reason is it's going to eat into my personal time, of which there's very little. It's going to tire me physically, emotionally. It doesn't fit in with the plans that I have for this day, this week, this year. No. So there's nothing to feel guilty about. No, as I said before, is a full sentence. No, I don't need to say any more than that. Practice it. Practice it. It's not so much panic. Yeah, that panic that comes up when when you find yourself in that situation. You can feel that somebody is about to ask you to do something. You start to get that internal panic or guilt. What do I do then? Well, you take that step back, you stall, you take a step back, ask yourself those questions, and then you go back and you say yes or no, depending on what your answer is. Changing is hard, finding a new way to be. Changing is so hard. Thank you for that. Change is so difficult unless you understand how the current situation is making you feel, how it's keeping you stuck. Unless you can feel into that, and that's what we talked about before. Unless you really feel everything that's caused in that comfort zone, that absolute unhappiness of people pleasing and lack of boundaries is causing, you're not going to be able to move out of it. You're not going to get that gentle kick up your backside you need to step into your courage and change your behaviour. So you really need to feel into that everything that's happening inside of you, everything I spoke about before. Somebody else, let me see. My mother always used to say, people will only put respect on you as you respect yourself. And that's going back, that's exactly it. People can't love you or respect you more than you love and respect yourself. It's exactly that. There's nothing to do, and that's why right at the very beginning of this I spoke about self-love. Always feeling empty. So I'm just reading through the comments. Always feeling empty. Yeah, and that's what happens. You're giving and giving, and you're not getting anything back. So you're emotionally you're empty, physically you're empty. You're in terms of love and respect and affection, you're empty because you're giving it all away. You're not keeping any for yourself. Someone's saying, is it okay to ignore someone? Is it okay to ignore someone? Well, the example that I use is with my mother. Is it okay to ignore them? My mother has narcissistic tendencies, and I didn't realize for a long time. I tried always, that's why I learned to people please. I always tried to put her first. I always did put her first. She was always the voice in my head when I made decisions. What would my mum think? How am I going to get away with this without my mum judging me? Blah 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 blah. When I realized the dynamic that was happening, I tried to be there in a way that I gave what she needed, but without losing myself in the process. But I realized at a certain point that I couldn't do that. I realized at a certain point that that wasn't working for me. It was leaving me, it was taking me back to the place that I'd been for my whole life, where I had no self-respect, where I felt completely empty, where I felt completely lost, where I felt really this tall. And it was kind of going against everything that I was creating in my life. So, if I'm showing up in my life and I'm setting boundaries for everyone else, I can't make an exception for one person, because that's, when there's always that boundary wall. If it's not firm everywhere, people start to work their way through it. They start to find their way through it, and then you find yourself back to where you start and you say, oh, boundaries don't work for me. Yeah, I'm as well doing what I always did because they don't work for me. So for me, it's a case of, is it cutting somebody off? With my mother, I had to. I don't think it's going to be forever, but certainly until I find a way of changing my behaviour around her. Yes. So I hope that answers your question. The people I'm thinking of are pretty dysfunctional, and my history with them, hold on a second, my history with them makes it clear that they do mind when I set boundaries. And that's going back to what we said before. When we're in dysfunctional relationships, it takes a while for people to, we've taught people what they can expect from us. So, it probably started way back when you were told how to behave. But as an adult, it's now your time to set out your stall the way you want it. And at the moment, if you're continuously, saying yes when you mean no, or putting that other person before yourself, then you're teaching him, her, that it's okay, that they can expect that from you. So, of course, when you say no, when you put yourself first, of course there's going to be a reaction on the other side. And that's where the consistency comes in. That's knowing that consistency and the self-worth. I know I'm worth more than this. I know I'm worth putting myself first. Therefore, I'm going to continuously say no whenever I need to. And in that way, I'm teaching that other person what they can expect from me. I'm teaching them how I want to be treated. And they have a decision to make at that point. They can decide at that point, do I want to stay with this? Do I want to change and fall into line with what you need? Or am I going to leave? And that's got nothing to do with you. Yes, it feels that the guilt comes up again, and we're all in this place where people pleasing causes guilt. It causes guilt. It causes guilt. But let go of the guilt. If when you're being true to you and the other people are disappointed, angry, hurt, and they don't want to be around you, that's their story and that's their situation. And in the same way as you have to respect yourself, you also have to respect that if they're not prepared to change, then they will leave. But as I say with my mother, what happened when she left is I created a huge space in my life to attract in people that wanted to love me, wanted to treat me with respect, wanted to show me how to be respected. So it was hard, it was difficult, it was scary even to make that decision. But what it created was so powerful. What it created, or the people that I've got in my life now, the five closest people to me love me and want the best for me. and that wasn't always the case. You know, there's that Jim Rohn expression, the 5 closest people to you dictate who you are. So if the 5 closest people to you are constantly expecting something from you, then you're going to show up as a people pleaser. You're going to show up unable to say no. So for me, when I was able to take that step away from my mum, everything changed. Now, I'm not saying that you need to do that. You know, you will find your own way. You'll find your own set of boundaries. But be aware that it takes consistency, and it takes knowing your worth and reminding yourself constantly of your worth. So is it okay to, in my opinion, to ignore an abusive parent? Pauline, I would say in the situation that I know that you're in, make do with what you have at the moment. You know, you're in a situation that you can't do anything. You're stuck in the snow, for heaven's sake, with your abusive parent. I would say try not to cause problems at the moment. Try not to cause a bad feeling at the moment. Just keep yourself centered. Keep your bubble around you so that they can't get into you, knowing that you're going to be out of that situation by the end of the week, hopefully by tomorrow, by Sunday, isn't it? And that you're taking distance from that, and that distance should be enough to allow you not to have to cut the relationship completely, or to ignore the relationship completely. That's my personal view for you. Everybody's different, and I'm only saying that to you because I know you well, and I know your story. I wouldn't give advice without speaking to you individually. But for you, I think that's particularly what you need to do at the moment. Who's completely narcissistic persons always has to control, and are constantly manipulating to keep control no matter what. Exactly. And if you're aware that that's what's happening, they're going to manipulate you, especially when they feel challenged. Yes, and that was exactly the situation that I had with my own mother. Was, when she felt challenged, when she felt that I was beginning to step out of line, she would come in on top of me and push me back down, and put me back into the box. And she would say such awful things to me to make me understand what my place was and what my role was in our relationship. And that's, that happens often. But once you're aware that that's how it goes, again, that's your power. You can take your power back from there. You don't need to be in the place where you're giving into that. But it takes consistency, and it takes a serious sense of self-love. And that's what this whole thing is all about. Letting go of all those other behaviors, letting go of all those other beliefs, and staying close to you, asking what you can do for you, listening to yourself, and the stories that the stories, not the stories at all. How would I want other people to treat me? That's your starting point when I'm talking about self-love. How do I want other people to treat me? And then starting to treat yourself in exactly that way. It takes time. Of course it takes time. But that's how you make the change. That's how you increase your self-confidence, to be able to speak up for yourself, increase your sense of self-worth, your self-belief, your self-esteem, in order to consistently put those boundaries in place. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, or if you want any more clarification. A narcissistic person also has control. Yes, yeah, Julie, that's absolutely right. But the guilt, sorry, going back to you, Rebecca, yes, completely, he's a narcissistic. He defines narcissism. But guilt for feeling, but the guilt I feel for saying what I mean is super strong. It will be, and again, that guilt is just a story. It's part of the story in your head. And of course, your father is reacting against that. He sees the reaction in you. He sees how uncomfortable you are, and that's what he manipulates in you. So again, it's consistency and just turning up and saying what's right for you. And as I say, it's not about saying no to everything. It's about saying Yes, sometimes, but it's about being able to know the difference, being able to intuitively say yes when it feels right, and buy that time to say no when it doesn't, and teaching other people, teaching them what your boundaries are and how you expect to be treated. And the great thing about that is, when you're doing this for yourself, it's so helpful for everyone around about you, for other people that suffer with this same affliction as we have, this people pleasing, or for your kids, or for anybody at all. It's so powerful to watch you and to learn from you. So it's a great lesson, not just for you, but for your children and for your friends and family who suffer in the same way as you, because it tends to be, these things. Pauline was talking earlier about, how her mum's the enabler. Well, because she learned that was the way to behave. She's never been able to step out of that, but she probably sees Pauline now stepping up and being strong in her boundaries and saying no to her father, and she gets some sense of of possibility when she sees that. So we teach other people what we're learning ourselves. I'm teaching you what I had to go through myself. I think we're just about the end of this sorting out. Definitely a feeling of panic when I see the look of disappointment. I'm sure it's from my mother. Yeah, that panic does keep coming up. Of course, it comes up. It's human nature, and it'll come up for a while, and it might never leave. But the thing about fear and panic and all these emotions is we spend so long trying to work out how we get rid of them, rather than saying, how am I going to live with them? That's the important thing. How am I going to live with it? How am I going to do what I need to do regardless? And again, that's just practice. The behaviour that you picked up way back when, Linley, and that you're continuing now in the relationship with your husband can be changed. And you may and probably will find, because your husband, remember, isn't your mother. So you will find that when you start setting those standards of behaviour, if you like, when you start treating yourself as you wish to be treated, and you start saying no to other people and yes to you, and you start buying yourself that time, you'll see the difference in your husband. You'll see the difference in the dynamic. I hope that makes sense. It's very, until you've actually practiced it and you've seen and you've felt it on your own skin, you've seen it with your own eyes, you've felt the difference in your body when you get that different reaction. It's very difficult to believe it. And that's part of the courage that you're going to have to take, is believe. If you can't believe it for yourself, believe that it happened for me, it happens for my clients, it happens for Pauline. I know that Caroline too. I've known Caroline for years. I've seen how it's worked for her. It works. It really works, and it's so powerful when you step into yourself. But you have to take that first step, and that first step is really courageous, to go outside of your comfort zone. And that's why you have to understand, as I said before, that's why you have to understand what your comfort zone is costing you. What it's costing you to stay in there, in terms of your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health, money, the way that you view the world, your relationship with yourself, the trust that you have for yourself, the relationship you have with others, the trust that you have for the world. Let me tell you, my life has changed from everything being dark and heavy and thinking the world was a dangerous, heavy, oppressive place, to getting up in the morning and thinking, what's next? That is how powerful the change in your life becomes. And that's how powerful it is when you start attracting people, like-minded people in. My clients are always amazed when I say, you let go of one person to make room for others. And they're always amazed when when they come back to me and they say, you'll never guess what happened. I had this conversation with this person, and then we're going to go and have coffee and we're going to talk about it. Because they've let go of this need to please everybody, and those people that don't want to play or be part of the new version of you have disappeared off. It's really powerful. It really works. But it takes that, it takes you saying, okay, today's the day I'm going to start it. So let me just scroll down and see if we'll get any more questions before I move on and tell you a little bit. No, I think that's it. I'll tell you a little bit more about, let me close this down so I can see you. So if you've got no more questions and you would like to know the next step is, I'm really excited about it. So the people up there, they're really excited about it. They're throwing things about. So I am launching a 6-week group coaching program to take you from understanding that you have a problem, saying no to other people and saying yes to yourself, through to understanding what it's costing you, to really getting clear on where those stories started and rewriting those stories, through to techniques that will help you, pretty similar to the ones that we talked about, but there are many more of them, that take you through breaking the pattern of people pleasing, all the way through to understanding what boundaries you need in your life, your individual life, lives, I should say, all again through to really setting those boundaries in place with my help. So understanding what boundaries need to be in place, because a lot, when we start this journey, we want to put everything in place. I want boundaries everywhere. I want walls and boundaries. Nobody's getting to me, because I understand all the trouble it's caused is not putting the right boundaries in place that will create win-win relationships across all your relationships. So that can be romantic, love, anywhere at all. So does that sound good to you? So how will it work? It's going to be, as I say, a 6-week program. There will be 6 coaching, group coaching sessions where we turn up like this via Zoom. We're all together, and I will do a lesson. We'll talk about one specific area each week, leading you from where you are now, i.e. A people pleaser, all the way through to somebody who has clear and strong boundaries, which are creating win-wins relationships across all your affairs. We'll deal with the wobbles that come up, the panic that comes up, and the thought of saying no to people. We'll deal with we'll deal with other people and how to put them aside so that you can concentrate on yourself. We'll work very, very hard on creating your sense of self-love. That's exactly, that's going to be the basis of everything to keep moving you forward, so that at the end of our 6 weeks together, you know what boundaries you need and what are going to work for you. I completely lost my train of thought there. So yes, so how does it work? So yes, six sessions, which will be group sessions. You will have, if you can't make the group live but you've got questions, you will have the ability to send me questions beforehand, because there will be a pre-questionnaire before you get started. There will be a weekly check-in sheet. There will be a workbook for you, which you complete at leisure after each session, which will ready you to turn up the next week. So 6-week sessions, really deep questionnaire, so that I get to know you, so that I know how to direct each call in order to help to get the most out for you. One-to-one session with me, which you can take at any time during the course of it, but maybe closer to the end, when you're actually setting boundaries, to make sure that we really, really get some clear boundaries in place, and that you're left in absolutely no doubt what that's going to look like. You'll have email access to me for the duration of the course, or Voxer access, which is a kind of walkie-talkie thing. So if you prefer to ask questions and get a verbal response back, we can do that. So that's going to be available for you for the course of the session, the duration of the course. I'm getting tired now. I've been talking a lot. The sound of my own voice. And for the first 10 people who sign up, there will be an additional one-to-one coaching session, which you can take at the beginning if you like, you can take in the middle, you can take whatever. So that would be, for the first 10 people, it would be 6 coaching sessions plus 2 individual coaching sessions, workbooks for each week with homework for you, a pre-questionnaire which gives me a really, really strong view of where you are, what your problem is, and the feedback from that questionnaire is women love doing that. It gives them such a lot of self-knowledge, and it's a really good starting point for them to make that transition. Weekly access, full access for 6 weeks, either via email or Voxer, as at your choice. And all of that will be available for €397, which can be paid on 2 installments, so that would be 150 each. This offer is only available to you people here who've signed up for the group after, and it's only available until midnight on Sunday night. After that, the cost is going to go up to $497. Sorry, the cost is going to go up to $497, and there won't be any access. There will only be 1 call available. So it's only for you, not for nobody else. And that's, I think that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions on it? Let me just check. No? Is it interesting? Is it something you would be interested in? I love that. Lulai, my first answer is no. But I'll go away and think about it. Fantastic, which means that you've actually listened to something I've said during the course of this. I love that. That made me laugh so much. Thank you for that. My job here is done. So yeah, you're going to get, what's going to happen next, you're going to get this dropped into your email, probably tomorrow morning now, because it'll take that long to download, with all the details of the course. If you get any questions that come up, just hit reply to the email, ask away, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. It's been such a delight. Thank you all so much for turning up, giving me your time. I hope you got something out of it. I know you got something out of it. Of course you did. Thank you for putting yourself first, because, as I say, it's so easy to brush people pleasing and everything that goes with it under the carpet, because it sounds so light, but it's really not. It's really a difficult topic, and it causes chaos all in every area of our life. So well done you for taking the time to show up, listen, and hopefully you're going to go away and start actioning some of the points that we made. So thank you for giving me your time. I'm looking forward to getting to know you all a little bit better. If you're not part of my group, Caroline, could you pop the link for my group into the comments here? And thank you. Thank you for that. And so if you're not part of my group, come and join my group. It's a great place to hang out too. You get to know me a little bit better. You'll get lots more lovely information on this, on people pleasing, but on all areas of your relationship, and it's a great place to ask questions too. So with that, I'm going to leave you to go on with the rest of your days. Thank you for joining me. Bye. Now I'm going to stop recording.